I am just doing a quick channel update, and hopefully we get some people watching and you can ask me questions. It's been a couple weeks since episode 4 of Take the Ring came out, The Town of Twin Peaks. I hope that a lot of you saw it. I know a lot of you saw it because it got a whole bunch of views, and I really appreciate it. And I'm glad that you guys checked it out. It came out a couple weeks ago, and we got a lot of comments, a lot of feedback, and it went really well. Jonathan LeMay says, howdy. Hello. Very enjoyable. Love the content. Thank you very much. Let's see. So yeah, that's the first thing on my list is just a big thank you to everybody. We did a live premiere. That was my first time doing a live premiere. And so it was cool doing the live chat. So people watched it when it premiered, and I was answering questions in the live chat and taking comments and stuff. I thought that was great. So thanks again. I want to quickly just give just another plug for social media. If you're not following, I assume if you're watching this, you are a subscriber. So thanks again. You can follow me at TakeTheRing430 on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So it's at TakeTheRing430. That's my Twitter handle. That's how you can find me on Instagram. I also wanted to talk briefly, just real quick, about episode 4, The Town of Twin Peaks. There are, if you notice, there are, when we talked about Packard and Frederick Truman, which is the father of Frank and Harry Truman, and the grandfather of Andrew and Catherine Packard, and Orville Horn, who is the matriarch of the Horn family that settled in Twin Peaks. Those 3 images were composites created by me. If you notice, there's the little watermark that I've been marking on some of my images and some of the things that the original content that I create for my videos. I usually put a little watermark on there. You'll see it has the date and an X on it. And so I just wanted to let you know that those are original works that I took and made composites from different people. I took some historical photos and made composites from some of the actors of the show. So that might be cool to check out. And again, to plug my Instagram channel, I will be posting some of those pictures individually with descriptions and things on Instagram. And I usually put little clips of the little segments of the video on Instagram, plus some other stuff. So I've been sleeping on Instagram. Basically, I worked right up to the last minute, like an hour before it premiered, to put out episode 4. And there are immediately after I published that, did the video, the next day I was buried in work stuff. So I had a bunch of other projects I had to do right away after that. Usually I post a video and then I, the following like week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks after the video's up, I'm on Facebook and I'm sharing images from the episode and talking to people about it and answering comments and things like that. And I've just been super busy. I haven't been able to do that. So since you guys are my subscribers and my fan base, I just letting you know that I am going to be doing that. So pay attention to Instagram and Facebook and Twitter from Take the Ring probably over the next week or 2. And I'll be sharing some images and some stills and hopefully some like little stuff that you guys might not have picked up on in the episode 4. So yeah, there's that. And then also I left it in the other room. The new Blue Rose magazine is out. It's the black and white issue, and it's got the nuclear bomb on the cover. And I've been so busy I haven't been able to read it, but I was going to hold it up and give a quick shout out and a plug to Blue Rose magazine. So if you don't know about Blue Rose magazine, please go check it out. And the new one has a new piece by John Thorne about Judy, which I'm super excited to read. And I haven't yet. I'm sure it's great, but I haven't read it yet. But so support Blue Rose magazine. And I believe it's bluerosemag.com. And I think it's Blue Rose Mag 1 on Twitter, pretty sure. Let's see. So, also, so speaking of my work and my side projects and things that I've been working on, I know this isn't Twin Peaks news necessarily, but other stuff that I've been working on, I recently did a show review of Tool. The band Tool came to Indianapolis last weekend or 2 weekends ago. And so I got to shoot pictures of the show, and I wrote a review. And if you guys want to read that stuff, I don't know if you can read this, but this is my other Twitter handle. It's this probably won't be able to read it, right? Because it's a reflection. Anyway, so it's at Jerbear Media, JERBEAR Media, Jerbear Media. So that's kind of my day job. So I write content for a local news station on the website, and that's where that stuff lives. You can also just Google Fox 59, that's my TV station, or CBS 4, that's the other one I work for. So Fox 59 Tool review, or Tool in Indianapolis, and you can read that. Also, leading up to that, the band opening for Tool on this leg of the tour is a band called Killing Joke, and they are a post-punk band that started in the late 70s. And they are my favorite band of all time. And I was fortunate enough to get an interview with Jazz Coleman, who's the vocalist and mad genius behind Killing Joke. So if you search Fox 59 Killing Joke or CBS 4 Killing Joke, you'll be able to read a brand new interview with Jazz Coleman that was very good. I did a good job. We talked about the Tool tour. I got a quote from Danny Carey from Tool. We talked about it's the 25th anniversary of their Pandemonium album, which if you were into hard rock or punk or metal in the 90s, you might remember that album. So we looked back on the Pandemonium album. And also the piece was published on Halloween on the 31st, and we talked about how Killing Joke celebrates Halloween. So also, speaking of that, if you Google Fox 59 or CBS 4 and Sherilyn Fenn, that's where you will find my interview with Sherilyn Fenn, who of course is Audrey Horne. And that was a few months back. But if you haven't read it, Google Fox 59 Sherilyn Fenn, and you will find my interview. She was in town for the Days of the Dead convention, a horror convention, and that went really well too. We talked about, of course, David Lynch and Twin Peaks, and how her part in season 3 kind of came together. So that's pretty good stuff. And so yeah, done. That's it for plugging my day job. But if you like Tool or Killing Joke, or want to read my Sherilyn Fenn interview, Jerbear Media on Twitter, or just Google Fox 59 and Sherilyn Fenn or Killing Joke. So that's it as far as. So that's the kind of stuff that I've been working on. So immediately after the episode 4 premiere, I had to finish the Killing Joke interview and prep for the Tool show. And then that took like the next like 2 weeks. So that's why I haven't been posting cool stuff to Instagram like I normally do after I do an episode. So let's see. What else? Not a whole lot in Twin Peaks news. It seems like the return or the potential season 4 may or may not be happening. Probably not. I, still there's going to be something coming in 2020 that might just be an exhibit at the horror museum, as some say, or it could be a Cameron from Obnoxious and Anonymous has a source that says it is a theatrical release and re-edit of season 3, which is super interesting. I have to admit, I think that that's super cool. I don't want to get off on a tangent. I really don't want this to go too long, but when season 3 was gearing up and coming out, there were Lynch was asked about it. I don't know if it had started playing or this was in the middle. I can't remember, but somebody was asking, how should we watch this, or how should people take this in, or whatever, how should it be viewed? And of course, it's kind of like a long movie, but it's also very episodic and all that stuff. But he made a comment like, well, you could watch it out of order. And that's always stuck in my brain, and especially while watching it. And, the idea that it's out of order, which, kind of makes sense. I mean, part 8 is kind of the genesis or the origin story of everything, if you want to look at it that way. And like I said, I mean, you could almost take all the Twin Peaks, the stuff in the town, you could take that out, and that would be like its own thing. And the Dougie Jones thing would be like its own thing. So if he's really doing a re-edit of The Return, I'm totally on board, super interested. I assume if it's a theatrical one night thing that that there's going to be cuts, right? Like something's going to be cut out of it, I would think. I mean, unless it's a 16-hour straight streaming or 16-hour straight cut. But assuming that things are cut out and it's more of a condensed or reordered or something, with different footage or whatever, I'm super, super interested in that. I really hope that that's what we're getting in 2020. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Let's see. Jonathan LeMay, I just saw this pop up, says Lynch got the Oscar. Yeah, that's great. Super great. Happy for him. Happy for everybody involved with that. I don't want to take anything away from that. I think it's super cool. I love David Lynch. I just don't have a lot of patience for award shows. I mean, when I was like younger, I was like, I always watch the Oscars and always watch this stuff, but like, I really don't care, really. I mean, I think it's important, kind of like Hitchcock, right? Hitchcock never got an Oscar. He's arguably one of the greatest directors of all time, and the Oscars kind of at the end of his career gave him an honorary Oscar, and I think that's awesome because it's for like, it's kind of like the newspaper. It's kind of like the New York Times, okay? Like whether you love or hate the New York Times, it's quote unquote the paper of record, right? So if the New York Times does a story like if humanity survives, right? That's the if humanity dies off and aliens come to the planet and they find, that like they're going to look at, the New York Times and they're going to be like, oh, this was important. And it's kind of like 20 years from now, I hope that people will be like, oh, David Lynch got an honorary Oscar for his body of work. And that might spur some people to go check him out. And that's wonderful. But I didn't watch his speech. I know Kyle MacLachlan was there and Laura Dern was there. And I think so I haven't seen any of that. So if anybody wants to comment, if there was anything worth talking about, but congrats to David Lynch. Congrats to all those people. I don't care too much. But yeah, that's basically been the biggest news, is that there hasn't been any news except for Lynch getting the Oscar and perpetual rumors and stuff. The other thing is real quick. I am going to uh, talk about a couple more things, then I'll take your questions, and then I'll wrap this up. If anybody's got any questions or comments, go ahead and put them in, and I'll answer them here in a second. Um, so, like I was saying, I'm real busy with my day job and got a bunch of other projects coming up. So it may be a while before I do another full episode, like the Twin Peaks and Laura and The Ring and Philip Jeffries and stuff. Excuse me. It may be a while before I do another full-on episode, but I've got some other stuff in mind. I think I talked about this in the last video. I am going to do another Talk About Judy video to talk more about the season 3 theories and such. And speaking of that, I've been getting a lot of questions about, have I seen the Twin Perfect 4.5 hour long video? So I haven't watched all of it, basically because I've been busy. I've kind of been playing pieces of it in the background. And I guess a short answer, and I've talked to other people about it who watched the whole thing, and I've read some stuff about it a little bit. But it is pretty incredible. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I suggest you all check it out. I really wish that guy or crew would have done it in pieces, maybe like a little bit more digestible, I guess. But it's pretty great. And the one thing I will say, because I get some comments too, like it's a meta critique. Okay, so as far as my Talk About Judy videos that are going to continue, so if you know, the first video I did is based on the Arbok theory, and it's a narrative critique. Like, what can we reasonably assume is going on in the show that we are shown and told and talked about, with maybe some hints from the other books or whatever. And he even says, the Twin Perfect guy says in the opening video, that he's not I think he says universalist. So that's what I do in my videos. Like, I am interested in the characters and how they interact and when these characters were introduced, and then maybe like some social context of when the show came out, and this, and and what is the Ring and what is the Red Room and when did that come about in the show, and how is the original show and Fire Walk with Me and the Return connected? How are they different? How do the books come into play? Does the Jennifer Lynch book, how does that relate to what happens in Fire Walk with Me versus, you know what I mean? So like, I'm interested in the universe that's created, the Mark Frost books, all of it, and how they all fit together. Now, what Twin Perfect is doing, which I'm going to talk about down the road, or what he did, and also the Tim Kreider piece, and a lot of the John Thorne theories is more like, what does it mean, right? So like, what is the meta critique is like what does it mean in our reality, if supposing that we are a participant, right? Like, you as an individual person are a participant in the story. What does it mean in like a social context? I mean, so basically the Twin Perfect theory is, like I said, I haven't watched all of it. I'm going to watch all of it. I'm going to talk about it. There's some amazing stuff in there, like amazing stuff. Like the idea that Fire Walk with Me was a response to the original show, and how it opens with the TV being smashed, but then how it also ends with Laura crying and laughing. And what I also believe is like a realization moment or a revelation or whatever. He's suggesting that it is the light flashing in Laura's face is the TV light, and it's her viewing herself or viewing the original Twin Peaks show and seeing that her death is instrumental in creating this show. And there's stuff in there about dreams and how your brain receives information and how it's like a TV. I'm not doing it justice, but it's pretty freaking great. I gotta I'm like I said, I think I'm halfway through it. And I've talked to a lot of people about it, and I love it. I love it. Love it. It's like the Tim Kreider piece that was in. Well, he published his own blog, and then John Thorne in the Blue Rose magazine talked about it as well. And it's the same kind of thing. It's like if you were removed from kind of like the outside looking in, and he compares it, Tim Kreider compares it to how kind of like how Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive and Inland Empire are people that are reimagined, are God, I don't know how I'm going to explain this. Like Lost Highway is arguably, this character, like the second half of Lost Highway might be this character who doesn't want to admit that he killed his wife. So he's constructed this reality that you're viewing that kind of like separates him from that. And how, in Mulholland Drive, you've got the idea that, the first half or the first two acts, 2/3 of it is the projection, or is Diane, Naomi Watts's character's like idealization of what happened. Like, oh, I was a sweet, innocent girl and came to LA and got wrapped up in all this stuff. So Tim Kreider suggests that the return is a Cooper character in real life, or maybe this Richard, or maybe someone else that is, it's his dream or his reality of like that he either killed this Laura Palmer character or was responsible for her death or whatever, and that this is all a dream reconstructing, like it's his fantasy. So Tim Kreider correctly, I believe, cites Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, which was a story back in the Civil War. It's like if you guys ever saw Brazil, Terry Gilliam's Brazil, right? At the end, and then he's captured, and then the good guys come in and they save him, and he breaks out and he goes and saves the girl, and so like the last 10 minutes is this like escape scenario, right? And but then you find out at the end that it was all in his mind. And Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge is kind of the same thing. It's a Civil War soldier, and he's about to be executed from off of a bridge, and he's thrown off the bridge with the rope around his neck. Well, the rope snaps, and he falls in the water, and he escapes, and he runs through the woods, and he runs for miles, and he gets to his house, gets to a house or his house, I don't remember, and then I can't remember. I think he finds pictures of his family or something, and he. I can't remember if he realizes that it's all a fantasy, but basically the story ends with the rope snapping. Like he never left the bridge. That was basically his life flashing before his eyes, right at the end. So it's like a mental projection. It's a mental escape, creating a story where this person escapes. And David Lynch in Lost Highway, The Making of Lost Highway, one of the documentaries, talks about how the theory or his idea behind Lost Highway is like, where does the mind go when it's trapped, or where does the mind go? So my thought has always been, I don't know if it's this true or not. I haven't like re-experienced Lost Highway in a while, but the idea is that maybe the Bill Pullman character actually killed his wife, and when he's put in prison, after prison, everything moving forward with Balthazar Getty is a fantasy of his. And at the end, when Balthazar Getty's escaping from the police in the car, and it's this electricity and it's all scrambled, that maybe that's him being executed. Maybe he dies. Maybe he wakes up. I don't know. So anyway, Tim Kreider theory is the Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge type theory that tries to tie in the return as like a mental projection of this Cooper or Richard character in a similar way that Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, and Inland Empire are arguably mental projections, right? So the twin perfect theory is not that, but it's a similar type of thing where it's the show is a critique of itself, and you are experiencing the well, it's more than that. It's David Lynch's critique of television, and that these characters are like literally living in a TV series, right? And that the lodge beings and the supernatural elements are creatures that know they're inside a television show, and everybody else is kind of like play acting. I don't know. It's pretty incredible. It's a bear though. Like I said, if I would complain about one thing, there's a couple tiny things I was just like, yeah, well, that wasn't really. I think there's a couple. Don't crucify me for this. I think there's a couple things that's like I know was written by. He cites a couple things that I know was written by like Harley Payton, maybe Mark Frost. Like there were different writers or whatever, but the theme is like solid. It's like rock solid. So I would suggest watching it. Maybe the next time I do a live video, I'll have watched the whole thing. But I love it. It's good, and I just wish it wasn't so long. I wish he had made like a, you know, 5-6 episodes that were maybe half hour a piece. But whatever. That's just like nitpicking or whatever. So okay, that's about all I got. Let's go through some comments. If you guys got any questions or any ideas or anything, go ahead and put that in there, and I'll try to get through it. Luba N says episode 4 is awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. Lisa says, hello, the Town of Twin Peaks video is my favorite of yours. Thank you. That's awesome. Appreciate that. Great. Carl says, great job with your videos. And thank you. Jonathan LeMay says the new Tool album is their best. Been a fan since the release of Undertow. I as well. I've seen Tool many times. Interesting. I have not heard the new album other than what I saw live. So they played 5 songs off the new album at this show, and it was great. The new stuff sounded great. They've kind of grown more progressive or experimental. I mean, a lot of that was kind of laid out in 10,000 Days or whatever, but I'm excited to listen to it. I met a guy at a Tool show on the Lateralis tour, and it was a kind of like a special show. They played like a couple of small clubs before they did a giant world tour. And I was lucky enough to get to one of those small club shows. I met this guy. This was in Chicago. I met this guy, and he came all the way from Texas to see the show. So we're waiting for the show to start, and I'm like, hey, what do you think of the new album? I think it'd been out like a month or a couple weeks or something. And he was like, oh, I haven't heard it yet, but I knew I was coming to the show, so I wanted to kind of experience all the new stuff live. And that's kind of how I went into this. I mean, one, I didn't have a whole lot of time to check out the new album, but then I was like, well, if I'm going to go to the show, then I'll go check it out and get all the new stuff live. So it's my spiel on Tool. And Silk Spectre Amari says Killing Joke. Woo. Yeah, Killing Joke's the greatest band ever. I mean, I think so. It's definitely not for everybody. It's post-punk, weird and heavy, and all their albums are different, and some of them are kind of light, and some of them are just super dark and intense. But I love Killing Joke a lot. LSD Clothes says your videos are great. Check out my Instagram at LSD Clothes. Okay, let me write that down. I will do that. LSD Clothes. You make beats and fun little video clips with classic films. Okay, that's cool. I make beats as well. Maybe can collaborate or something. And then only the question, what do you think of the 4-hour Twin Peaks analysis? So we talked about that. Haven't watched it all. Watched a lot about it. I've watched half of it. read a lot about it, talked to a lot of people about it. I am way into it. Really, really like it. So, um, Smooth Crusader 94 says, been watching Twin Peaks for a few years now. Really enjoy your theories. Agree with a lot of your points of view. Thank you. Jonathan LeMay says Lynch got the Oscar. Jonathan LeMay says it meant a lot to Lynch, and that makes me happy. Yeah, that's great. That's my point. If he, I mean, he deserves it, right? I mean, like, there's no arguing that he deserves it, and the industry needed to recognize him for all kinds of things. So I am glad that I'm glad that he was happy, and that, you know, it meant a lot to him. And he said Kyle and Laura's speeches were nice. Yeah, I'm sure they were, and I'll probably watch that stuff at some point. Jonathan LeMay says the Twin Perfect video was entertaining. He does go overboard a little bit trying to get everything into his theory. Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. I think he nails it that the characters are becoming self-aware. Yeah. I was like, what? This is great. It's just like introducing like angles and stuff. I mean, you know, like, you can only watch, or, you know, you watch this stuff so many times, and people have theories, and it's kind of like every couple of months, like someone's got kind of a new angle or whatever. But this was just like, wow, this is like some stuff that, like, ideas that I'd never really heard of before. And again, it's a meta critique, so it's more like, what does it mean, or what does it mean as the outside looking in? But it's cool because it's tied. He does tie it to the narrative. Like, he does, like, it is also tied to what's actually going on, which is just great. Dallin Moore says, would be interested in an exploration of Twin Peaks soundscape, sound design, music dynamics. Yeah, maybe I'll do something like that. I also do, not so much anymore, but you know, I've written some of my own stuff. I've recorded stuff before. I've recorded other bands before. I used to promote punk shows and stuff, and so I'm all about sound design and music. And David Lynch, from like way back 20 plus years ago, big influence on me, and how, and just, I think about sound in movies and all of that stuff. So that would be super fun. Would you rather fight one Mark Frost size David Lynch or 100 David Lynch Mark Frost? Yeah, I don't know. Tokus, holy shit, is that Dave Grohl? Interestingly enough, I guess for the record, I'm not a Foo Fighters fan. I don't think that they're bad. It's just not really my thing. But Dave Grohl's an amazing drummer. He is. I like all of Dave Grohl's side projects, right? So, like, I'm not a big Foo Fighters fan. I'm not even that big of a Nirvana fan, to tell you the truth. I don't hate Nirvana or anything. It's just like, you know, everyone around me for the last 20 plus years is, I mean, Nirvana is kind of like always around. It's kind of like the Beatles. It's like, I know it by osmosis, right? So it's just kind of like, I don't know. Like, I don't get in the car and throw in a Nirvana album. It's just not my thing. Same with Dave Grohl. But Dave Grohl drummed on the 2003 Killing Joke album, which is my favorite. That album is awesome. And Dave Grohl did the drums. And that arguably stems from, so Nirvana's Come As You Are, that the riff, the opening riff, the main riff of Come As You Are is ripped off from a Killing Joke song called 80s from 1985. Again, arguably, basically admitted to by Dave Grohl. And some people believe Killing Joke stole that riff from The Damned, which argument could be made. But basically, Nirvana Come As You Are was kind of a Killing Joke ripoff. So when Dave Grohl did drums for Killing Joke in 2003 on their self-titled album. It was kind of a full circle thing. And the drums on that album are brutal. Dave Grohl also did the drums on Nine Inch Nails with Teeth and Queens of the Stone Age, Songs for the Deaf, which are both great albums as well. He did a metal like collaboration album called Probot, which was pretty cool. Anyway, enough about Dave Grohl, but so I'm a fan, just not a big Foo Fighters fan. Anyway, Regina from Brazil says hello. Hello. Dylan says, what's my favorite single episode of Twin Peaks? Jeez. Maybe the original series finale. Probably the original series finale. That completely melted my brain the first time I saw it. This might be my favorite thing I've ever seen on TV. It was after the fact. I bought the VHS tapes like a couple years. I didn't see it when it was on TV live, but a couple years later, they released the VHS tapes, and I was a David Lynch fan by then, and I just went and bought the whole box set and just binge watched all of it when I was like 15. So final episode of the original series, episode 8, though, from The Return, I mean, you could say, because it's so radically different, that maybe that doesn't count, but man, like that might be my favorite. And I watched that live, last 2 years ago. That was probably my favorite TV viewing experience ever. Like ever. Nine Inch Nails is one of my favorite bands. So Nine Inch Nails was in it, and they played at the beginning, and Ray Monroe got shot, and then Nine Inch Nails played the song, and then you've got this like Eraserhead meets 2001 origin story of Twin Peaks, and it just, oh god, that was just incredible. So there you go, episode 8 from The Return, or the series finale of the original show. Those are my favorite episodes. Jonathan LeMay says 10,000 Days didn't do it for me. Inema was my favorite until now. That's cool. Inema is just awesome. To be honest, when 10,000 Days came out, that was in the mid 2000s, and I was throwing a lot of punk shows and recording punk bands, and like a lot of DIY stuff and indie hip hop stuff I was into. So honestly, I kind of like wasn't listening to a lot of Tool when 10,000 Days came out. So I wasn't really interested. Then like a few years, I don't know, 5 years later, a buddy of mine that I worked with, he brought it in and we listened to it a lot. So 10,000 Days grew on me. I would suggest maybe listening to it again, maybe with some time, maybe it's gotten better. But yeah, Inema is basically a flawless album. I think they did. I mean, that's just like a definitive 90s album. I mean, you just can't get much better than that. I mean, Undertow's amazing too. But Inema is like what made me go, oh wow, this is like creative. And I had the motion cover, and Third Eye was like, I wasn't listening to a lot of bands that were doing 15-minute songs back then. So yeah, Inema was a big deal, huge deal for me. So Regina, is it Regina from Brazil? Yeah, Regina from Brazil says hello, listening about Twin Peaks and learning English. Great, awesome. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Like I said, my wife's Brazilian, and I've been to Brazil before and hope to go again soon. And yeah, I don't speak Portuguese like at all. I know a little bit, but I appreciate you watching. Jonathan LeMay says best Killing Joke album is it's hard to say which is the best. If you don't know them, if you don't know who Killing Joke is, the first album from 1980 is considered like a definitive post-punk album. So this is like, the early Cure, you know, pornography. Well, actually, earlier than that, early Cure stuff, Joy Division, that kind of stuff. If you like really old Cure and Joy Division, and you know that late '70s, like whatever third wave of punk or whatever, first Killing Joke album's great. Nighttime, which is from actually the first two or three albums, kind of have that sound, but the first one is considered a classic, and it is. It's pretty flawless. And the Nighttime is 1985. That has the 80s song, which Nirvana ripped off. And it also has Love Like Blood, which is considered probably their biggest hit. If they had a radio or MTV hit, I guess. So I would check out the first album, which is self-titled. It's just called Killing Joke. Nighttime, which is 1985, which has their biggest hits on it, including that Nirvana song. I like an album called Extremities. It's called Extremities, Dirt, and various other repressed emotions. And that was kind of a return to form album. It's where they kind of went back and did a raw kind of punk album. And the great Martin Atkins, drummer of Pigface, is the drummer on that album. And that has songs like Money Is Not Our God and The Beautiful Dead. And I believe they recorded that in Chicago, and Martin Atkins is on it. So it's got a very Chicago wax tracks kind of. I mean, not really. I don't know. It's a very punk album, very raw. Martin Atkins is a great drummer. So Extremities is great. Then the 2003 album with Dave Grohl on it is a blistering, heavy, dark, intense. It might be their heaviest album. This is 2003, leading up to the Iraq War, so it's like scathing anti-war album. Like not every song, but like it's angry and openly critical of global governments and whatnot. Don't want to get too political, but yeah, 2003 might be my favorite album. And then the original four guys got back together in 2008. So 2009 or 2010, somewhere in there, they have an album called Absolute Descent, which is the four original guys got back together. And it's another album. It's basically flawless. Like every track on that album is great. So yeah, the first self-titled album, Nighttime, Extremities, the 2003 self-titled album, and Absolute Descent. There you go. Those are the best Killing Joke albums. Sorry, all you Twin Peaks fans that are sick of me talking about this band. Niles Delta says, I'm waiting for the box set to rewatch season 3. That's cool. I would recommend sitting down. If you can, I would try to watch all of it in like a couple days. If you can do it all in a day or two. I did that and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I mean, I like the whole doing it as an episode thing, but if you're going to do a rewatch, might as well just try to blast through it all. It's pretty great. Adam Grayskull says, dude, I'm sorry, I'm watching the new Creep Show. Just saying hi. Hi, Adam. How you doing? Let me know if that new Creep Show is good. Brandon from the BX says, I watched episode 8 from The Return on acid and said that was wild. Yeah, I bet that was pretty wild. I wasn't on acid, but I bet that was pretty wild. And Adam of Grayskull says, Brandon, me too. You watched episode 8 on acid too? All right, awesome. Would you eat a burrito for like $1 billion Australian dollars? I'd eat a burrito for 50 cents, man. Depends how hungry I get. Okay, so looks like we are out of questions and been going for like 45 minutes. So I'm going to let you guys go. One last thing. Again, follow me on Instagram at TakeTheRing430. I'm going to be posting some pictures and some exclusive kind of stuff that I made for the episode 4 video that I did. Take the Ring 430 on Twitter, Take the Ring 430 on Patreon, Instagram, Facebook, and I don't know when I'm going to do another one of these. I'm just going to try to get on Instagram and give you guys some content on the social medias for a while. And I don't know, might be a month or two, or I don't know. So I got more videos coming. Just don't know when that's going to be. It's all about when I find time. And oh, if you want the Sherilyn Fenn interview that I did, just Google Fox 59 Sherilyn Fenn or CBS 4 Sherilyn Fenn, and you'll be able to find it. And okay, so thanks a lot, everybody. Appreciate it. Talk to you later.